Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a fascinating journey into how nature actually balances itself and, well, exactly where we humans fit into that whole puzzle. If you've ever wondered how the natural world regulates itself so perfectly and why human behavior seems to operate on a totally different wavelength, you are absolutely in the right place. Let's get right into it. We're going to break this down step by step today. We'll start with nature's perfect balance, look at what we call the four orders, define basic activity in nature, explore this really cool concept called the principle of conformance, and wrap up with the human difference. Okay, starting off with part one, nature's perfect balance. So the first thing to wrap our heads around is that nature isn't just a random collection of stuff. It operates on incredibly specific cycles and inherent self-regulation. What does that actually mean? Well, it means there are cyclical processes constantly at play that keep materials and entities totally conserved and balanced on Earth. They do this entirely on their own. It's this beautiful system ensuring everything stays perfectly balanced without needing any external interference. And we see this self-regulation happening literally everywhere we look. Just think about the water cycle. Water evaporates, condenses, and precipitates right back to Earth. Or take a look at a forest. Nature never, ever creates a situation where the growth of trees suddenly outpaces the actual soil available to sustain them. The exact proportion is naturally conserved. Even plant and animal breeds, they self-regulate their population sizes naturally, making sure the continuity of their species is always guaranteed. It's like a giant self-tuning engine. Moving right along to section 2, let's talk about the four orders. It turns out every single mutually interacting unit in nature falls neatly into one of four distinct orders. Think of it as a hierarchy. We start at the base with the vast material order. This is your soil, your water, metals, and gases. Then we step up a level to the pranic, or biological order. That's all of our plants, shrubs, trees, the whole flora kingdom. Next up is the animal order, which encompasses all animals and birds. And finally, sitting at the top, is the human order, which is, of course, all of us human beings. Now, let's jump into section 3, basic activity in nature. To really understand how these orders interact, we first need to get on the same page about what we mean by activity. In this specific framework, activity is simply something that has motion or has a result. It represents how a unit constantly interacts with its environment through its state, its configuration, or its motion. And here's the crazy part. This means everything around us is active. Even a completely stationary wooden chair in your living room is continuously interacting with its environment and very slowly decaying. Nothing is truly static. And as we move through those four orders we just talked about, this activity actually layers up in a really fascinating way. The material and product orders, they simply recognize and fulfill. For instance, hydrogen and oxygen recognize their relationship and fulfill it by combining to form water. Pretty straightforward. But as we move into the animal order, their conscious self, the I, adds a new layer, assuming. And finally, humans. We possess all of those earlier traits, but we add an entirely unique capacity, and that is knowing. All right, section 4, let's look at the principle of conformance. So how do these orders maintain their continuity over time? Well, that is governed by a core concept called conformance, or anusangita. Conformance is basically the mechanism or the principle by which the continuity of the fundamental nature of a unit or species is preserved in existence. To put it simply, conformance is the ultimate blueprint. It ensures that a unit stays true to its fundamental, innate nature, generation after generation. But check out how radically different this mechanism works across the four orders. The material order relies on constitution conformance, meaning an atom of iron will always conform to the chemical structure of iron, period. The pranic order relies on seed conformance, so a neem seed is always going to sprout an in-plant. No surprises there. The animal order relies on breed conformance. A cow always behaves like a cow. But humans? We are entirely different. We don't conform purely based on our genetics. Our conformance is actually based on right values, or sanskara. And that is driven entirely by our imagination, our desires, our thoughts, and our education. Which perfectly tees up section 5, the human difference. Let's really drill down into that difference. Think about the animal order's conscious I. It is entirely limited to making choices based on assuming. If a dog sees a stranger, it assumes there's a threat, so it barks. If that person sticks around and starts living there, the dog's assumption changes and it stops barking. Simple as that. But human order activity is driven by a conscious I that actively desires, thinks, selects, and has a deep fundamental need for actual knowing and realization. So while an animal acts on assumption and breed, a human acts on knowledge, thought, and imagination. It's a huge leap. Which brings us to a really powerful quote from the source material. It says, "In the case of humans, we can say, as the education, so the human. We are according to our desires, thoughts, and selections. Together, we call these sanskara." It's a game changer when you think about it. Unlike that neem seed that has absolutely no choice but to become a neem plant, our continuity in our behavior as humans are shaped almost entirely by our upbringing, our values, and our education. Now, looking at this visual, notice the incredible interconnectedness of these four orders. The material, pranic, and animal orders naturally enrich and fulfill one another. They're in perfect harmony. But see those question marks pointing to the human order? That right there highlights our current predicament. We are literally the only order failing to naturally ensure mutual fulfillment with the rest of nature. We totally depend on the soil, the plants, and the animals, but our actions often deplete rather than enrich them. And why? Precisely because we are not just running on automatic, natural conformance. And that leaves us with a pretty massive fundamental challenge. Since human conformance isn't just decided by our genetics, but by our sanskara, our education, and our values, it means we actually have a choice in the matter. So the question is, what right values are you consciously choosing to conform to today in order to harmonize with the world around you? I really want to leave you with that thought, challenging you to use your entirely unique human capacity from knowing to step up and consciously self-regulate. Thanks so much for exploring this incredible framework with me today.